The 2020 presidential candidacy in the USA has kicked off. With over 15 candidates currently running to remove Trump from office, who knows what can happen?
I don't know what I said. I don't remember.
I will be discussing a presidential candidate who to me seems very promising. His name is Andrew Yang. I've reviewed his policies, read his book, and watched dozens of his interviews and speeches. Though he cannot truly give us happiness, he can surely help us see things a little different. The biggest policy he is running on is called Universal Basic Income, or UBI. What is it? Andrew Yang explains it here.
The Freedom Dividend is Universal Basic Income by a different name, just tests better. So we're going with the Freedom Dividend. Where every American adult between 18 to 64 gets $1,000 a month. Free and clear, you get it, I get it. It doesn't matter if you're working, how much you make, we don't care. You're a citizen, you're an adult, $1,000 a month. Now, the cost of that is about $2 trillion per year. Now, for reference, our economy is now $19 trillion, and it's grown $4 trillion in the last 10 years alone. We are the richest, most advanced society in the history of the world, and we can easily afford $1,000 a month. So the federal budget right now is $4 trillion, so $2 trillion seems like a very big add. But the great thing about it, this is not a government program, it's just circulating money back to citizens so that we can buy things for our children, repair our cars, go to school, start a business, whatever we want to do. So this $2 trillion, the way it's broken up is that we currently spend between $500 and $600 billion on welfare, income support, disability, et cetera.
Current welfare programs are about $500 to $600 billion.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you're going to give everyone $1,000 a month, but they're already getting, let's say, $1,000 in current benefits, then you say, okay, you're already getting it, you're set.
Okay.
And so this $500 to $600 billion decreases the cost of the Freedom Dividend by about 25%.
Okay, down to $1.5 trillion.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the big change you have to make is that right now our income tax system is going to be really terrible at generating revenue from AI software machines because they're going to do more and more work, but the beneficiaries tend to be really big tech companies that don't pay a really high tax rate at all.
You wrote in your book that Apple, Microsoft, and Google have tens of billions to hundreds of billions of dollars that they run through offshore accounts.
yeah, they do. Ireland's a particular favorite, and so they just have all this money parked offshore because they can easily just assign revenue to various places. And so even as the big winners in this AI revolution make more money, it's very unlikely that the US government or society is going to see a lot of that. So what we have to do is we have to adopt a value-added tax, which is something that every other industrialized country in the world has except for us. So it's us modernizing and getting with the program. And because our economy is so large, a value-added tax at half the average European level would generate about $800 billion in revenue.
So Europe's about 20% value-added tax.
Yeah, and so
what does that look like then for like a company like Apple then?
So what would happen is that Apple would be paying a value-added tax at every step of the production process, and then their costs go up by about that amount, total amount.
So about 20% more for a MacBook or an iPhone.
Well, it would be about 10%, though traditionally companies end up eating some part of that and then passing some of it along to consumers. So it could be that that the price of the iPad or whatever goes up like 8% or something along those lines. But keep in mind, though, you've gotten $1,000 extra a month, and so has everyone else. And so everyone, like the bottom 94% of the U.S. population will end up with an increase in purchasing power.
But then the question then is, if the items are costing more money, if there is that slight inflation of the cost of the items, then how much is that offset this $1,000 a month that I'm making? Yeah, it'll give me the ability to maybe buy it, but then these normal items like food and water and electricity are how much have they went up, and how much does that take away from my $1,000 that I'm earning?
Well, it just depends upon how much you consume, and that's one of the beauties of this system, is that the average American is consuming nowhere close to the threshold where they would lose. Again, the bottom 94% of Americans would see an increase in purchasing power. You need to consume an awful lot in order to have the VAT be more than $1,000 a month. And if you're at that apex of society, then that's great. It's great for you. Even the wealthy people I know, and I do know some wealthy people, they prefer a consumption tax regime to something like a wealth tax or even higher income taxes, because what they'll say is, look, I can control my consumption. I can get a slightly smaller yacht or jet or whatever, but I can't control my wealth. And so if you tax my wealth, it's going to make me really mad. But if you tax my consumption, then I'll be like, yeah, that's fine. And again, every other major industrialized country already has it, some at twice the level. So this is something that people are very, very accustomed to.
So value-added tax taxes consumption, which is why people are more okay with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so value-added tax at half the European level gets you 800 billion. So that plus the 500 billion gets you up to about 1.3 trillion. Out of the two.
Yeah.
Now here's the beauty of it, is that if you give people $1,000 a month, they're going to spend it. Right now, 59% of Americans can't afford an unexpected $500 bill. Everyone's really cash strapped and living paycheck to paycheck. So with an extra $1,000,
us included, support on patreon.com. The link is below.
Yeah,
support
sure.
Yang 2020.
Yeah, I mean, let's do it. It's going to help creatives, artists, entrepreneurs. The Freedom Dividend will be the greatest catalyst to entrepreneurship and creativity in the history of the world. So you put $1,000 a month into people's hands, they're going to spend it, they're going to create things, and it's going to create 4.5 million new jobs and grow the economy by 13% or 2.5 trillion, according to the Roosevelt Institute that modeled this out. So it's going to be this incredible boom, and the US government gets back about 500 billion of that in new revenue, because if the economy booms by 2.5 trillion, of course, the government's going to get its fair share. So that gets you up to 90% of the cost of the Freedom Dividend. And then you get the last couple hundred billion from cost savings to healthcare, incarceration, homelessness services. It gets very expensive when people hit our institutions.
Yeah.
There's one study that showed that if you give a poor family $1, it'll save us $7. So keeping people functional with $1,000 a month actually is going to be this incredible value multiplier. Mental health will improve, graduation rates will rise, nutrition gets better, like all of these things that will be incredible value adds. And you know what goes down? Hospital visits, domestic violence, criminality, like all of these things. So it pays for itself. And what I'm suggesting isn't even aggressive. Like you could say, hey, we're really going to like create this map, which we will. But even if you're conservative, this thing's very affordable.
In other words, in about 10 to 15 years approximately, automation will have taken over around 44% of American jobs. This means that we will have a massive amount of unemployment. Many will say we should have the government retrain people for work. The problem here is that government training programs don't work. An article from Investors.com shows, quote, the New York Times reported that one of the biggest and oldest federal job training programs, the 1.7 billion Job Corps, is failing those it's supposed to help. The program, started in 1964, was supposed to build ladders out of poverty by training students in trades like welding, auto repair, and electrical work. But the IG found that incomes amongst participants were no better than the general non-college educated population. They also stated, quote, the IG also found that Job Corps officials couldn't account for 95% of the money that was supposedly going to job placement services. With a universal basic income, these workers will have a support to help them live with the minimum necessities. As of 2019, anyone making below $12,490 is considered poor. This means that the $1,000 a month will still keep you in poverty if you don't work. This isn't enough to live very comfortably, but will provide you with food, shelter, and water to survive on. The current welfare state in the United States is also failing. Many people are afraid of improving themselves due to the fact that the government will take away some or all of their benefits if they attempt to even get a minimum wage job. They also make it difficult to get back on these benefits should you ever need them again. In other words, you're fucked. Another question that is asked about UBI is, has UBI ever worked in any state or country? The answer is yes.
And one state has had a dividend for 37 years where everyone in that state gets between $1,000 and $2,000 a year, no questions asked.
What state is that?
That's Alaska.
Really?
Yeah, you go to Alaska right now, you live there for a year, and everyone in your family gets between $1,000 and $2,000 a year from the petroleum dividend. It was passed 37 years ago by a Republican governor, and Alaska's a deep red state.
This Republican governor shows up, 1982, and he's like, hey, there's a lot of oil money. Who would you rather get it? The government who's just going to screw it up, or you, the Alaskan people? And then the Alaskans said, us, please. And he's like, I thought you'd say that. And so then they passed this dividend. And now it's wildly popular, has created thousands of jobs, has improved children's health, has a decreased income inequality. And what I'm going around the country saying is, look, what Alaska is doing with oil money, we can do for the entire country with technology.
Now we come to the lazy question. Won't UBI make people lazy and not want to work at all? The question is really, for a lack of trying, lazy itself. A little research can go a long way. As Guy Standing points out,
Contrary to all those prejudiced people who said that if you give people a basic income, they will sit back and drink, indulge in things you shouldn't be doing, blah, blah, blah. Sonia Gandhi told us that. She said it's waste of money. Waste of money. So we were very interested to see. As it turned out, in every area, work went up. In every area, women in particular were able to do better types of work, had access to resources. The only group for which work went down were children. This is a terrible thing. You have to get really worried about this. The reason was, of course, they were going to school. That's a real setback. I hope none of you believe that. Now, in addition, people were more entrepreneurial in a small ways, like this woman, like buying her sewing machine with the help of her family. And also, we saw people who had been in debt for generations, in debt bondage. And they used their little basic income, and their relatives contributed some of theirs, and they were able to buy their freedom.
people are not just lazy for no reason. There are many different factors in life that place people in that state of mind. Andrew Yang may not be the ideal candidate for everyone. Some of his policies are not going to be favorable, one of them being gun safety. Many Americans love their guns and take the Constitution seriously. The main reason our founding fathers came up with the right to bear arms is just in case government tyranny became a thing. By Andrew encouraging a gun buyback program, this would discourage many American voters. This is not to say that he will make it harder to purchase, but rather more secure. For example, adding biometric security to the guns. Let's not forget, though, that this is all optional and you will not be forced to give up your precious guns. Even though I personally understand Yang's point, considering what recently took place in New Zealand. But the argument is that if those people were armed, there would have been less casualties. Nevertheless, there's always someone making lots of money by keeping these guns in the market. Capitalism at its finest. Profits over anything else. The rest of his 70-plus policies are realistic and ring to me in many ways. Take, for example, his free marriage counseling for all. Statistics show that a home with two parents make families stronger and is good for the child's well-being. Not to say that a single parent is incapable. I would prefer a single caring parent raising a child rather than two abusive ones. Other policies include legalizing marijuana, tackling the opioid crisis, modernizing military spending, and even increasing the president's salary to $4 million. Yes, I would like the leader of the free world to make what they deserve. Let's pay the president more to do a great job and become less corrupted. In conclusion, we have to become more conscious of our actions. The evolution must take place sooner rather than later. Our brothers and sisters from France, known as the Yellow Vests, formed in 2018 after their government failed them. Many felt betrayed by their established president. This is a populist movement that will only get bigger if the government doesn't do the moral thing. It's only a matter of time before such movements spread worldwide and the oligarchs will be forced to give back what they have stolen, or better yet, what the system has allowed them to steal. My name is Frank. Until next time.